This is episode 11 of Store and Forward, your podcast about the past and future of amateur radio. I am K Savitz, K6KJN. I am the curator of the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communication, which is your free online ham radio library available at Internet Archive. And I am here with my favorite co-host.
Steve Stroh, NHGNJ, and I am the editor of the Zero Retries newsletter, a newsletter that's focused on the technological innovation that is occurring real time in amateur radio.
Today is March 2nd, 2025. How you doing, Steve?
I'm well. I'm warm. I
Good.
I have a new heater on the ceiling of my chilly office here in NHGNJ Labs, which is my big shop, unheated at the moment, and it's chilly again this morning. So my new heater that I bought last weekend at the Seattle Home Show is gets the job done pretty well.
Good. But you're still wearing a hat, so it's not.
Well, it hasn't quite heated up, and I am completely uninsulated up top. So
I see. Yes. Very good.
but it's more comfortable, and my hands aren't numb. So this is good.
Good. Excellent. So what are we talking about? What are we doing?
Well, I just wanted to give you some kudos for the excellent work you've been doing on DLARC. And there was a recent podcast, the Ham Radio Workbench podcast, very well known.
Yes.
I confess that I hadn't listened to this particular episode where ARDC personnel were guests, and I finally got it listened to all the way through yesterday, and oh my goodness, they gushed about DLARC and Internet Archive. So I trust you heard it.
I did. They talked. It was like 10 minutes. They were going on about Internet Archive and Brewster Kahle and DLARC, and it was great. I was
Yeah.
happy to.
Well, it's really really good to hear that it not just from well, what was cool was that the ARDC folks didn't bring it up, but the Ham Radio Workbench hosts brought it up,
Mhm.
and and they really appreciate what's going on, and ARDC obviously recognizes the good work that's being done, so good job.
Thank
And
you.
you got mentioned by name, so that's always good.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah. So, I
recognition.
mean, I guess there's no such thing as bad press. So,
Yep, this is true.
right.
So
Nice. Well, I'm glad and you let me know about that, and I let everyone at Archive know about that, and so thank you. Also got some press. I gave a talk about a month ago now for the Rat Pack amateur radio group,
mhm.
um, and I gave a talk, and they put that up on the YouTube channel, and I talked for about 40 minutes. New talk from that I invented called DLARC, the free online ham radio library, and it was it was very well received. And I had been given this other talk several times called 20 Things I Learned as Curator of DLARC, and that was fine. And people liked that talk, and I liked that talk, but I was ready to, I don't know, I wanted to repackage it into something new. And like, 'cause some people just don't know what DLARC is yet. And so this was just like put it on a plate, like why we created this library, a little bit behind the scenes of how it gets done, and what kind of things you could find there. So um, I will put a link to that in the show notes. Um, if someone has managed to listen to this podcast but still doesn't understand what DLARC is, you can talk about it for 40 minutes.
Your co-host just wandered in.
Oh, Truman is here. So he's yeah,
Yeah,
he's
my
bored.
my wife is suggesting that I give her a break and bring our two kittens out into my office
Yeah.
because they like hang when I'm out of the house. They like hanging with her in her office, which is smaller than mine. So,
Hmm.
uh,
I'm sure there's all sorts of trouble for them for a couple of
oh
kittens to get into in
oh,
your office.
it would be infinite here.
Nice.
So, big news at Zero Kai's galactic headquarters here is that we hit 2,500 subscribers, and just Friday we announced the Zero Retry store. So we can sell semi-quality merch, for the support of Zero Retries
Excellent.
and its mission.
Great.
Oh, and then I got an amusing email just this morning, that I am now considered a Substack bestseller because I have 100 plus paid subscribers on Substack, just in time to get off of the Substack platform.
This is
Which,
exactly the thing about don't want to be a member of any club that would have you. Just like, I'm
well,
out.
Substack has a bit of a checkered reputation,
Mhm.
and it's sufficiently odious that I don't want to be on Substack much longer.
You bet
And
you've been talking about getting off Substack for months now. And I mean, at least privately to me, and it's not easy to disengage yourself from a platform that you've been on for a minute.
if it weren't for the politics, I would stay on Substack. It works. Now it's got a lot of quirks, and they're trying to position it as a ecosystem rather than a straight publishing platform, which I would prefer. And I'm being regularly gamed now. I'm convinced that some substantive portion of my email subscribers are there solely because there's some benefit to be gained by recommending me, some benefit to them by recommending me, even though they have nothing to do and no interest in amateur radio.
Hmm.
So, yeah. There's only about 6 of us that I know of on Substack that are doing amateur radio. So we're a infinitesimal portion of the Substack,
Right.
content creators.
Nice.
So you also said that you were pretty busy with a task in the new administration. You want to talk about that first?
Well, sure. I mean, Internet Archive, a, a, a a big part of what Internet Archive does, with the changeover of any administration, not just this one, is to archive all of the as many of the government websites as they can. Any administration, for instance, will come in and change up the White House website, take down documents, put new documents in, and that is certainly no different for this administration. So they do that, and that stuff goes into the Wayback Machine and whatever. And then there, the, I heard something on the news, and I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. I don't remember, but that some government agency had deleted everything from its YouTube channel. And it occurred to me like, well, that's unfortunate. And I certainly hope that someone at Internet Archive backed that stuff up. But I'm just like, well, what about the FCC? The Federal Communications Commission has a YouTube channel. It's got more than 1,300 videos, and some of them go back, 10, 15 years. And as far as I could tell, they weren't backed up on Internet Archive. And like, well, that clearly falls into the remit of DLARC, and I'm going to figure out how to back them up. Um, and so I started doing that, and it took me down a rabbit hole of, I mean, I know I've been backing up YouTube stuff a little bit here and there, but all of a sudden now I have more than 1,000 videos to do, and I had to learn how to do that, which involved firing up several different Linux servers, and starting downloading things using TubeUp, and and then after a while, YouTube went, no, don't do that, and then started IP blocking me. So then I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out how to use a Linux-based VPN to change up my IP address. And so anyway, it took me about a week, and a lot of learning about how to use uh, VPNs from the command line, but we have got the 1,300 FCC videos going back So if someone at the new administration decides to remove those from YouTube, we still have them. And some of the I'm watching the titles go by, and some of them were just like the titles were like literally things like diversity, equity, and inclusion in communications infrastructure, and things like things like, oh, if certain people notice this stuff, it's gonna get taken down, you know. And so anyway, it's saved now, and it's somewhere where no one can get at it. So that made me happy.
Kudos.
Um,
I was amused when you mentioned that your gigabit fiber upload got saturated.
Yes,
That's an
yeah,
accomplishment.
that's right. You and I were trying to FaceTime the other day, and you're like, your video's glitchy, and I was just like, oh, and I switched it to just cellular service from Wi-Fi, and you said it got better. Yeah, I was uploading so much stuff that my gigabit was saturated. Um, my my router provides graphs of upload and download, and normally I use a good amount of bandwidth, but all of a sudden, in the last week, the graphs are just like off the chart. The amount of stuff I've been moving around. Backing up now that I've done the FCC, I'm also backing up material from the US AGM, which I have to look up, but it's the US Agency for Global Media, which is sort of the parent company uh, of the Voice of America
Mm.
and a bunch of other things like, let's see, uh, um, Radio Free Asia and other Radio Free Europe. They're kind of the parent of all those things, and so I'm getting some of that material too. I figure it's communication. We'll call it
Mhm.
DLARC. Um, so anyway, I feel like I'm happy to be able to do my part and you know um, get this stuff backed up just in case. Also, kind of separately, the FCC was looking around the FCC website, going, what else might need to be backed up just in case. The FCC publishes a thing called the FCC Daily Digest. Do you
Oh
do you
yeah.
know it?
Yes, I do.
It's
I
basically
don't follow it, but other people I know do.
it's basically a document they publish every workday, and it's basically a what we did today document.
Hmm.
Um, Usually 3 to 5 pages, and it links to just like the meetings that happened, the discussions, the topics, the whatever they, and with links to all the documents they created. And they've been doing this since 1996 or something like that, or
Wow.
at least they're online since 96, 95, something like that. And I decided I'm going to back it up just in case, which it's something like 14,000 days, work days or something between now and then. Um, so I downloaded all the main documents of the what I did today documents. And then I decided, well, I'm going to download all the documents linked from them. And uh, it's taking up gigabits of space on my hard drive so far. It's been running for days and days and days. And just like every linked document is getting put nice into a folder. Right now, it's doing uh, 2013 um, September 9th, and it just gets every document. And uh, so I'm just
You're doing all this on an iMac?
yeah
And I assume you have like a terabyte disk space or something.
yeah I got all sorts of space. So I'm not sure if I'm sharing the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, over here it's just getting file after file, and I've gotten 2 terabyte SSD, and we're filling that up. So that's kind of fun. Um, and then I've got to figure out how to I will re-upload all the stuff to Internet Archive after I package it in some sort of way that makes sense. I think I'll do it by year. Here's all the
Mhm.
documents from 2013, or
Sure,
so anyway, but step one is getting it all though. Uh,
absolutely.
so yeah, this
I kudos for doing that because so much of what the FCC does is based on precedent. Um, and if you can cite precedent, you know, in an official FCC, you know, action,
mhm.
or especially one that you're proposing, um, then you can go. Then you have standing, or that particular action has standing. So, well, okay, we did say that back in the day. Um, and that segues into a project that I've reluctantly embraced, to create I'm going to, if I can't find some help, I'm going to wade in and do it myself, for better or for worse, a petition for rulemaking to remove the the symbol rates and bandwidth limits on the amateur radio, U.S. amateur radio VHF, UHF bands. And I've got a site, I'm going to have to do, it's nothing you do casually, which is one of the reasons why most people don't even try. And, or that those that do try are summarily dismissed because they haven't done their homework. So this is why most successful ones are initiated by communications attorneys. So I've got to do my homework and dive in deep about, how did we get to this state of affairs of, why did we have these limits, and why don't we need these limits anymore? And the short answer is that we used to do symbol rates because we had crappy hardware in doing data communications. We had to build
Symbol rate
modems.
was tied so closely to bandwidth at the time, right? Is that the
Yeah, you can.
difference?
Yeah, well, if you don't control the symbol rate of particular modulations, you can spread out the bandwidth and cause interference
Right.
to adjacent. So say they allocate you, right at the moment, the limit is, I think it's 20 kilohertz on 2 meters. And if you don't control the symbol rates, if you try to pack in too many symbols per hertz, then your bandwidth starts spreading out beyond what's allowed. So it made sense back in the day because we had modems that if you tried to go too fast, you could spread out your bandwidth. But now with digital signal processing and essentially software defined radio, we can say, okay, we want a X number of symbols and we want a maximum bandwidth of, and boom, it's done. It will, that modem is hard coded to do exactly what you say it's going to do. So absent some really crappy adjustment on your radio, you can make it do exactly what you need it to do. And that's what that's what we need to be doing going forward if amateur radio is going to be relevant in the 2020s and beyond. That 100 now, what's absolutely silly about the 100 kilohertz limit is it's not like we care that you go wider than 100 kilohertz, because we've got ATV that happily goes beyond 100 kilohertz, as much as 6 megahertz. So anyway, so I'm going to be diving deep, and I may end up taking a week or two off from zero retries to do this work, because it's going to be intensive, especially if I have to do it myself. And there's no funding, there's no organization that seems interested in doing this. I mentioned this in a zero retries. Nobody stepped forward to offer to help. Nobody even expressed any interest, which shocks me. So either I'm either I'm deluded in my quest of this, or I'm so far out ahead of things that nobody gets it. And the work you're doing in DLARC is going to be key, because I'm going to have to be digging stuff up out of the dusty archives about, to cite some precedent.
Sure. And if somebody decides all this old stuff is taking up space and we don't need this and removes it, then you've got
Yep,
bearing, no standing to look back onto.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I really, another, speaking of DLARC, so I really got to get better about snapshotting all of the links that I use and I cite in zero retries. I've already lost some of them. And minor plug for, since you have some, weight at Internet Archive, please fix the bookmarklet, at least in Safari.
I thought
I
they
would.
did. I thought we had a whole discussion and they
Yes, we
fixed it.
yes we did. They did, and it's broken again, or at least it is broken for me.
Oh,
I gotta dig into it.
all right. Well, let me know what the problem is. I need to, I can't come to them with, it didn't work. I need to know how it doesn't work. Yeah, I thought it was, I used it the other day and I assumed it worked. It
Okay,
didn't tell me it didn't work. I don't know, in Safari. So,
okay, I'll double check,
yeah,
because I tried using it the other day and it just seemed to hang again.
mm,
Just never.
yeah,
I wish it would tell you. It's like what its status is. It's either working or done, and if
mm,
it works for a long time,
yeah.
etc. Okay, so let's see what else. Oh, another new feature of zero retries is the fire hose, and I'm going to be doing periodic fire hoses and trying to drink from. My bookmarking system is just chaotic right now, because I bookmark stuff, then I don't use it. I run out of time and space in zero retries, and so I will wait till the next week, and then more stuff is piled in. So I've just got to.
Sure.
I'm going to pull it back to. I might go as far as July 2024, and everything before that is just get nuked.
Right.
It's I couldn't get it in, and then
It's
yeah, it's ongoing problem. I can't imagine what that kind of stuff happens for you at your scale.
right. Yeah. Yep. What do you, but actually, I mean, if I haven't archived something that I learned about 3 years ago, then it's probably still there and I can probably still archive it. So it's still interesting for the future, maybe. So, right. But yeah, your stuff is, you're talking about the cutting edge of amateur radio. You can't be talking about stuff that happened a year ago.
Well, bringing it back around, actually, yes. So the um, I did an article in this past issue that talked about how
They've, they have two helpers now.
we were thinking about getting a puppy for our two cats, and we thought, no, that's a little too much chaos, and especially at their age, before they're a year old at least. Um, so I was talking. The article was, why hasn't somebody done what my colleague in Chaos, Martin, on the IP400 network project, why hasn't somebody done this before? And I made the point that yes, we have. We've done faster networking projects in the past, some of which have worked for a while, some of which have not. And you need to, you don't have any credibility if you say we tried and failed. But if you can cite precedent, what we did, and provide links, and somebody go on and look at this. So, like, for example, there were two companies in Germany, German hams, that built really good packet radios where we could do faster data rates, as up past 100 kilobits per second. And they had the modems to match and the radios to match, but it was expensive. It was like a $600 radio back 20 years ago, when that was a big chunk of change. It still is. But but the radio, it's tough. So they sold a fair number, but eventually they discontinued it because it costs real money to keep something in production. There were several projects that I was able to cite, one of which I was able to pull out of. Oh, there was a very interesting company for a couple of years by two incredibly bright engineer brothers, both of which are now working at startups in the space industry. And they just didn't have enough time to keep devoting to this. But they were going to tackle a new type of amateur radio, purely from the digits, and it was going to be entirely in the digital realm. And it was called Relativity, or that's Relativity Space is the startup. Faraday RF. And the only record, I'm sorry, well, there are two archival records. One was the snapshot of the website in the Wayback Machine, and then there was also the GitHub repository of their work. But that's it. That their website is long gone. They gave up on it. They did what they could, but here were, people have tried, and for various reasons they went out of business. They didn't get the project done, et cetera. And you need all that history to be able to make a credible case of, okay, let's not do that. Let's not make those same mistakes. And you walk around the landmines that about that people have done. It's like, if you start a project, like one of them from bitter experience with Tapper tried to do a frequency hopping spread spectrum radio, which was a fantastic project. It would have been a fantastic device, and it would have worked really, really well. The problem was that we were doing it with volunteer labor, which takes time. The development time was measured in like a year and a half, and the parts went obsolete twice. The poor developer started the project over when his first set of components went obsolete, and then it happened again, second time. You can't afford those kind of development timelines in this era now, because components are developed for a particular use, and then technology moves on. No point in continuing those components. Nobody's in this for charitable purposes except amateur radio. We're way below the threshold of being able to do our own silicon. So anyway, so yeah, it's just a bit of a love letter to what you're doing at DLARC and the role of the Internet Archive in general. I mean, it's just not, without being able to cite previous work, we just be whistling in the dark here. I mean, what you are doing, in my opinion, beyond our friendship and my respect, is that you are distilled gold in what you're doing for amateur radio. So this, and your work, your hard work, will live long past what you've done. You'll have a hell of a legacy. Good job, Kay.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. The weird thing is, for me, is I have no idea exactly which thing is going to be important to who and how far away. 10 years from now, maybe someone might go, "Oh, yeah, I found the amazing thing." I find things that I think are amazing, like, I archived this radio show that was forgotten, or these whatever, this Russian amateur radio publication that was forgotten, or whatever. This stuff I think is cool, but that might not be the stuff that ends up being useful, and I'll never know. So I'm just like throwing it out there into the universe, and so hopefully.
Well, one of the fun things I saw was, so I'm trying to do this zero retry store. There's a component of a garage sale there, or shop sale. Mm-hmm. Trying to find a home for stuff that I'm just never going to get around to. And one of them was a pair of radios by a company called Comco. And to my utter shock, Comco is still around. It doesn't make radios anymore, but graciously they included an archive of their old manuals for their old products. And the particular radio I had was not in there, but they had a predecessor radio, so close, probably close enough. And I shot an email over to you. It says, maybe we should grab this. And within 5 minutes, I got an email back and said, done. So thank you for that. And,
Sure. Yeah, it was done. Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was easy and right. But I love a company that just
cares enough about their customers.
cares about it. Yeah, and remembers its own legacy. And like, yeah, whatever. We used to make radios, and now we make uh, what was it? Alarm systems or
Yes.
whatever they're doing. But you know what? We know where we came from, and we respect it, and we can throw up some old manuals on a web page to so why not?
Well, I was absolutely astonished that, the as form as formative as the W5YI report was back in the day, and that's another resource that I'm going to be diving into for some precedent, um, is that the W5YI, the commercial W5YI group, had, as far as I could tell, zero interest in worrying about whether the W5YI report was available online as an archive or not. So thank you for saving that amazing resource also.
You're welcome.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about a really, really cool piece of technology. Speaking of, the future of amateur radio, I wrote an article in Zero Retries 190 about a researcher who had built a Wi-Fi sensing array out of 8 ESP32 chips with 2.4 gigahertz, which is just about as cheap a wireless device as you could possibly do. It's like under $2 a chip.
Yeah.
And there were 8 of these in this thing. And this guy figured out how to use these very inexpensive chips. And the result was that he was walking around with his phone, and there was overlaying a data display, or the image with the video, and he held up his phone, and there was this glow around the phone showing the Wi-Fi signal from the phone. And then he started doing some demonstrations about putting it behind a piece of metal, like there was a Faraday shield, and then he walked around a wall, and you could see the glow shrink down because very little of the energy was getting through the wall. And then he started doing things like showing reflections. Then he really, I think, was the real game changer. Was he connected like an 11 element beam to it, to his phone, and started showing. So you looked at the beam on the side, and you could there was nothing. And then he slewed it around to point at the array, and then all of a sudden, so all of the energy from that phone was going out the end of that beam, and you could viscerally see how the energy is directed and what the difference between an omnidirectional antenna is, and reflections, and so it was you can do graphics like that all the time, but seeing it real time in video, and with him explaining it real time, that was game changing. So we just keep the technology, now not exactly amateur radio, but close enough, adjacent, as I say. Yep.
I watched this video when you suggested that I do it, and it was really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it was worth the 20
Yeah,
minutes or
it
whatever.
was all of 10 minutes, and this was
Yeah.
suggested to me by a Zero Retries reader, and he longtime reader who knows the kinds of things that I'm interested in, and I pay attention to, and and recommended this strongly. So I watched it on that recommendation. I'd seen it show up, but there's so much stuff on YouTube that I filter most of it out.
Sure.
But this one was good.
Yeah.
So we just keep inventing new technology, and another thing is that so this can be used as kind of a radar, almost, an interior radar.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's the antenna that he used. That so mind blown. It's like I people are what I constantly marvel at is I am not what I consider a subject matter expert in all things radio, but people just regularly blow me away with what they're able to do, and this is one more example.
Yeah.
So.
It was very, very interesting. We'll put that in the show notes so people can go see that on their own.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And then in about 2 weeks, I will be at 2 or 3 weeks, I think. Yeah, we leave them on. No, I think it's 2 weeks from Friday. A week from Friday,
Hmm.
we will be in, Tina and I will be in New Jersey for Ham Science Citizen Investigation.
HamSCI.
HamSCI, yes.
HamSCI. Nice.
In Trenton, New Jersey, I think. Anyway, New Jersey, Newark area.
Nice.
What's really cool is that it's being held at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, and formerly known as Newark College of Engineering, which is where Tina's dad went to college.
Oh, neat.
So she's really thrilled about that. So we're both signed up, and we're gonna hang out with the citizen scientists there.
Beautiful.
And I've been told that this is the closest thing that is currently running that is the same level of intensity as the digital communications conference that's now discontinued. And so that it's going to be very cool to rub elbows with folks and talk. I'm going to go armed with a presentation about IP400 and zero retries in case they have lightning talks or something like that.
Nice.
And then
Beautiful.
yeah, so it's going to be.
Well,
As Tina pointed out, time is running short, and we better get ready.
look forward
So
to hearing your report from that.
yeah.
Nice. All right.
And one last thing
Yeah.
of an interest to both of us is that uh, DigiPi version 1.9-3 has now shipped, and our favorite little widget, which I forgot to grab. Oh, and Kay comes to the rescue. Da, 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 da. So the widget, for those that aren't um, watching the video, is called the AIOC, or all-in-one cable, and it is essentially an audio interface that is in a very small package that plugs directly into a Kenwood compatible portable radio, and Baofeng follows the Kenwood specifications slavishly. So pretty much any Baofeng and many of the Chinese portable radios will be compatible with this. And it's the audio jacks on one side and a USB-C connector on the other. And the idea is that you put the audio interface right at the portable radio, and you don't have to fabricate audio cables from a modem and have a separate modem. So basically, you plug this into your portable radio, you plug the USB-C into a laptop or a Raspberry Pi in the case of DigiPi, and you're up and running. And there's all kinds of goodness in this version of DigiPi besides the AOIC compatibility. For example, you can drive a V or not a VGA. Boy, I'm dating myself. HDMI monitor now, and so I think this is going to be. I'm going to write this up in excruciating detail in zero retries about.
I can't wait. You had me. You didn't have me. On your recommendation though, I bought this thing at Pacificon, and then because I wanted to hook my little Baofeng or whatever it is to Raspberry Pi, and then it like didn't really do much yet because the software didn't support it. And then at your recommendation, now it does, and now we'll get to play with
Yeah,
it.
I wasn't the instigator of this, but I strongly encouraged the developer of DigiPi. In fact, and he said he basically implemented it, kind of an external recommendation because it uses a very common audio chipset. Um, but it really got kicked into high gear when I insisted on sending him one. Uh, so now the red AIOC adapter is the one that I sent him because he wanted a red one. So I knew that was the one
Fair
that he
enough.
was using.
That's what it takes to get it done.
Yeah, it was a very small investment in sending it to him. So anyway, so that's about all I got. So
Me too. All right. Well, let's wrap it up and save something for next time.
yeah,
Great. This has been Store and Forward, your podcast about the past and future of amateur radio. Our address for this podcast, with our show notes and everything that we've talked about, is at storeandforwardradio.org. I am Kay Savitz, K6KJN, of the Digital Library of Amateur Radio and Communications, your free online ham radio library. Please check it out. And I am me, you are.
I am Steve Stroh, NHGNJ, editor of the Zero Retries newsletter about technological innovation in amateur radio. Comes out weekly at approximately 15:30 Pacific, but it hasn't missed a week so far that wasn't scheduled. And you can find it at www.zeroretries, ZERORITRIES.org.
Good
So
talking to you with you, Steve.
good talking to you, Kay. 7-3.
7-3.
And my very next one, I'm going to have my background cleaned up so I can turn on the camera full.
Believe it when I see it, sir.
Touche. Oh, skewered. Justifiably.